wake up as a loser who can't even look at women. And although it seems he will die alone and a virgin, his sister makes him end up seducing stunning ghost goddesses capable of destroying the world completely. The problem is, you can't even look at them without it showing that you are, well, drooling under your pants for them. You are pathetic. A useless protagonist who couldn't even meet a girl's eyes. His entire life was a boring routine of snoring, silent breakfast, and walking to school unnoticed by anyone. But there was something strange in his world, something everyone had learned to fear. The Spacequakes, energy explosions so destructive they could wipe out entire cities in seconds. The first occurred 30 years ago, and then more came every 5 years, like a death clock, until one day they simply stopped for 25 years. And just when everyone began to breathe easy, they returned with vengeance. But Shido didn't care. He continued eating his breakfast while the news screamed warning. What he didn't know was that his little sister Kotori, that sweet girl who woke him up every morning, held a secret so big it would change everything. That day, Shido had planned nothing special, just to take Kotori to a restaurant as he had promised. But when the emergency sirens began to sound throughout the city, something in his chest broke. She was still waiting in that restaurant, right in the evacuation. He tried calling her, but nothing. He checked her GPS location, and there she was, waiting alone. Without thinking twice, he ran toward the danger while everyone else fled in the opposite direction. The spacequake hit him like an invisible fist. It threw him to the ground with such force that he almost lost consciousness, but when he opened his eyes, what he saw left him paralyzed. It was a beautiful girl, standing in the middle of total destruction, in shining armor that accentuated her beautiful curve, looking as if made of light and power, completely alone. She looked at him and without warning drew a giant sword, pointing directly at his chest. Shido raised his trembling hand. Wait, I'm not dangerous. I can't even kill an insect stem. But before she could respond, missiles began to fall from the sky. Soldiers, armed to the teeth, appeared from everywhere, firing merciless, and she raised a glowing force field that blocked everything, then counterattacked with a force that shook the ground. Shido watched, lying there like a loser, unable to believe what he was seeing. Then someone else appeared. Someone Shido knew. Origami Tobichi, the genius student from his class, the girl who had been staring at him all day without saying a word, dressed for war. The two girls clashed in the air. The impact was so brutal that the shockwave knocked Shido unconscious. When he woke up, he was in a futuristic medical room. It was Rain, the analysis officer, and she finally gave him the news. He was inside a flying ship called Fraxinus. Wait, what? Shido could barely process what he was hearing. A ship in the air. But what came next was even worse. Much worse. The person in charge of the ship wasn't a military officer or a scientist. It was Kotori, his little sister, dressed in a military uniform, acting as commander with a coldness Shido had never seen in her. "Welcome to Ratatosk," she said with a smile, then explained everything. That girl in armor wasn't human. She was a spirit, a being from another dimension so powerful that her mere arrival caused Spacequake. That's why people died. That's why cities disappeared. And there existed a military group called AST, whose only job was to hunt them and eliminate. But Kotori, no. Kotori had another plan. One completely crazy, yet beautifully fitting for her brother. Shido could seal the powers of all spirit women, deactivate them completely, turn them into normal beings. But how could a loser like him do something like that? He only had to make them fall in love with him and then end up kissing. Yes, Shido, that shy loser, had to go on romantic dates with beings capable of destroying entire cities, and if he failed, everyone would die. This has to be a joke, said Shido. But no one was laughing. The next day, his training began. They sat him in front of a dating simulation game and told him to practice pickup line. Kotori took the controls and showed him how it worked. Shido watched, a mix of horror and shame. Then came the real test. He was told to practice with his teacher, a woman who had been single for 29 years. Shido tried to say something romantic and failed miserably. The lines that came out of his mouth were so embarrassing that he wanted to disappear. Rain intervened, suggesting better lines. The teacher reacted so intensely that Shido ran out, colliding with Origami and causing her to fall. His shirt came undone. Delightfully, Kotori shouted through the headset, telling him to take advantage of the moment. But Shido's mind went blank, completely empty. Rain saved him again, suggesting he ask her out. To Shido's surprise, Origami said yes. Shido tried to explain it was a joke, but before he could finish, the Spacequake alarms sounded again. Origami ran off to prepare for battle, and Shido knew his life had just changed forever. The spirit girl had returned, but this time she was hiding inside a school classroom, letting herself be revealed. She couldn't attack without risking civilian lives, so Kotori told Shido to go in and talk to her. "We'll guide you from here," she promised. Shido entered the classroom and almost got vaporized by a laser, narrowly dodging it, trying to speak calmly. The ship crew guided him through the headset, but every word seemed to anger her more. She was preparing a much larger attack this time, and Shido shouted that he was only a student and didn't want to hurt anyone. That stopped her for a moment. She finally recognized it was the boy from before, and she lowered her weapon. Shido told her he only wanted to talk, that he wouldn't leave even if she ignored him. For the first time in his life, someone was speaking to him without fear, without hatred. It made her blush. When he asked her name, she said, "I don't have one." So Shido gave her one, Toka. It was the 10th of the month, the day they met, and she loved. But then AST lost patience and opened fire. Toka created a force shield to protect them and told Shido to leave, but he refused. He stayed under the shield with her, and Kotori told him to ask her out. When he did, Toka didn't even know it was a date. Just as things began to calm down, Origami appeared. She saw Shido and Toka sitting together and assumed Toka had him as a romantic interest. Toka unleashed her ultimate weapon, Sandalphon, a giant sword glowing with destructive power. She unleashed an attack that destroyed the entire area. After the explosion, Toka disappeared. Origami was severely injured, and Shido was left standing among the rubble, knowing this was just the beginning. The next morning, Toka appeared behind him without any Spacequake alarms. She reminded him he had asked her out, and Shido noticed she was still in her battle gear. He told her it wasn't appropriate for a date and showed her a photo of Origami in her school uniform. Toka used magic to copy the outfit, and thus began their first real date. Toka devoured everything edible in sight, literally everything. While chewing meat, she saw a dessert with white cream and begged Shido to buy it. Meanwhile, Origami watched from a distance. Confused, Shido asked Toka where she had disappeared the other day. She explained that every time she disappeared, she was brought to a dark, empty world where she could sleep. Returning to the human world wasn't something she chose. It just happened when her sleep was interrupted. Shido realized something huge. Spirits didn't cause spacequakes on purpose. It was an uncontrollable side effect of their sudden arrival. Then he asked why it didn't happen this time, and Toka avoided the question while asking for more meat. Finally, they ended up in a fancy restaurant. Shido tried to stop her because he had no money, but then his friend Tonomachi appeared and gave him cash like a true savior. Inside the restaurant, Rain was already there. She said they had managed to track and enter this dimension, and Kotori appeared out of nowhere. Shido asked Kotori what was really going on. She casually said she was only trying to increase Toka's affection for him because he definitely wasn't succeeding on his own. Before leaving, she gave him important advice. She told him to head to the south side of the station. When they finished following her advice, Shido continued the date, and suddenly the area transformed into a giant amusement park, clearly created by Ratatosk to help him. As evening fell, Toka told Shido she had enjoyed it, that she had begun to see humans differently, and that before she thought everyone wanted to kill her. Now she understood that groups like AST only chased her because her arrival caused involuntary destruction. She began to feel guilty and said maybe she didn't belong in this world. Shido made a decision. He asked her to stay in the human world forever and promised to help her understand everything. Toka warned him that people like AST would never accept. Shido said he didn't care, that he accepted her no matter what. She extended her hand to take his, and at that moment, Origami, who had been aiming at her with a rifle, accidentally pulled the trigger but didn't hit Toka. She shot Shido directly in the chest. He fell motion and Origami panicked. Horrified. Toka entered full rage mode. She summoned her astral dress and her huge sword. She launched a deadly attack at Origami, and alarms sounded. The system warned of a spacequake, but Kotori remained calm. He will not fall that easily, she said. Suddenly, Shido's body began to glow and miraculously came back to life. Toka was burning with rage, ready to finish Origami. Origami, frozen with fear, accepted her fate, but just in time, Shido fell from the sky. Toka flew, caught him, and hugged him tight. Kotori shouted for him to kiss her. He did without hesitation. Immediately, her spiritual powers were sealed. Her outfit disappeared, and they floated back to the ground. Toka smiled. She asked if they could go on another date, and he agreed, even though his wallet was empty. But what none of them knew was that this was only the beginning. There were more spirits out there, and the truth behind everything was far darker than Shido could ever imagine.